and welcome to Gambling TV. My name is Erin Gallagher and I'm the Media Executive at SBC. So, to mark International Women's Day 2021, which takes place today, Entain announced this morning that it will be making a $250,000 donation to Girls Who Code, which will be used to help encourage and support women within the technology industry. So, to discuss this partnership and the donation, I spoke with Grania Hurst, the Group Director of Corporate Affairs at Entain, alongside Deborah Singer, the Chief Marketing Officer at Girls Who Code, to find out what the partnership will entail.
So the first question that I do have for you is, obviously, it's so important to celebrate International Women's Day. We are in 2021 now, so why do you think that now is more important than ever to kind of celebrate it? And what are you going to be doing to celebrate the event?
Yeah, do you want me to go first, Deborah? So I think, Erin, for me, International Women's Day is an important time to come together to both appreciate and celebrate what women do across the world in all various walks of life, but also a chance to question what more can be done to continue to improve things. And I think the key thing for us is that it's not just a moment in time. It's not just the one point in the year at which you talk about women, but it's a kind of catalyst moment in the year. In terms of what we'll be doing to market, it's actually my son's 4th birthday. So I'll be eating cake, playing pin the tail on the donkey in the morning. But then in the afternoon, we have an excellent event internally with a lot of our colleagues. We have a range of panelists talking about the importance of International Women's Day for them and how we can continue to kind of challenge stereotypes. And we're also super excited to be launching our great initiative with Girls Who Code.
And Deborah, how will you be celebrating?
Yes, so I think it's important to have a day, for sure. I think this year, this has been a tough last year, and girls around the world, because of the pandemic and remote schooling, are experiencing unprecedented learning loss. And that goes throughout the pipeline, from our youngest teenage girls all the way up through university level and into the workforce. We know that women in particular are really bearing the brunt of the pandemic and of the global recession that's resulting from it. And so this International Women's Day, it feels more urgent than ever to signal that we are invested in young women and in girls, that their education is a priority, that getting them into the jobs of the future, into the industries that are going to be shaping all of our lives, is more important than ever. And so this International Women's Day almost feels kind of like a call to arms in a way that others perhaps haven't. And I'm excited to celebrate it this year with this amazing gift that we're receiving from Entain to further the expansion of our programs globally.
Perfect. So Deborah, for those that don't know, can you tell our readers a little bit about what it is that Girls Who Code, like what you do?
Yes, Girls Who Code is an international nonprofit dedicated to closing the gender gap in technology. We started with 20 girls in a classroom in New York City, and today have grown to reach 300,000 young women all around the world. And we do that in a number of ways. We run free coding clubs after school that run in schools and community centers and universities, where we spark girls' interest in coding and also build a supportive community around them so that they have resources and people to lean on so that they persist. We also run summer immersion programs where we take high school girls specifically and teach them how to code. And then we support them in their journey into the tech workforce. So we now have 80,000 college-aged alumni, and they are majoring in computer science at 15 times the national average. So in a short amount of time, we've been able to massively flood the pipeline. And that's really exciting because those are girls that are available for companies like Entain to bring into internships, to hire in a few years, and to really start to change the way the technical workforce looks around the world.
So this is a kind of a question for both of you. So how did this partnership between Entain and Girls Who Code come about? And kind of what is the key aim? What is it you want to achieve through this?
Yeah, so Entain as a global tech and entertainment company, and now with a new female CEO at the helm, our new CEO Jette has really turbocharged our focus around inspiring and encouraging women into tech. And with that, we wanted to reach out to organisations who could help us with it, because we know that we can't achieve it alone. And we're very conscious that we need to start that journey at a very early age through schools and community clubs, as Deborah's just alluded to. And that's why we reached out to Girls Who Code, with their global footprint in the UK, US, India, Canada. And we also have another partnership which we're launching next week with the Tech Girls Foundation movement in Australia, to do something similar in encouraging young girls into inspiring them into STEM subjects.
Yep.
And just to echo, Entain reached out to us, and what was exciting for us was both the global nature of this partnership. Our work outside the US is still new. We've been at it for about 3 years now, so having partners that can help expand our global reach is really critical. And we always say in our programs that you can't be what you can't see. And it's so powerful to see a new female CEO leading this company as a role model for our girls. And so that was icing on the cake for us to get to have a role model inside a company that we can point our young women to.
Perfect. So something that was kind of mentioned in the release, so girls' participation in the STEM sector can kind of sometimes be limited. So what do you think are the key reasons for this? Or why do you think this happens?
I'm happy to.
Yeah, go ahead, Deborah.
Yes, girls, the pipeline is leaky throughout, but the biggest drop-off happens in middle school, around 8 to 11, when girls go from having equal interest and aptitude in STEM subjects to really beginning to drop out of STEM and coding in particular. And we see this globally. In the UK, I believe by the time a girl reaches her A levels, computer science is only about 15% women.
Jeez.
And it never recovers in university and then into the workforce. And what we see happen in middle school is the impact of culture, that all of the messages that tell young women what they can be and what professions are right for them and what skills are right for them really start to enter a young woman's psyche and influence her beliefs about her future career paths. And so, yes, we teach girls to code in our programs, but we also teach so much more. We help them build identity as computer scientists. We show them examples of other young women in the field and the long and rich history of women in computing that goes back to after World War II and women being some of the very first human computers. And so we've seen that that's a really powerful model to bring girls into STEM and coding in particular, and then get them to persist and ultimately succeed in the field.
Yeah. And kind of this probably more slightly specific to you, Grania. So how will the investments into Girls Who Code help remove these barriers? And kind of for you, Deborah, like how will education play a role in this? Because I know you mentioned about the immersion programs for school. So it should be quite interesting to touch upon that.
Yeah, so we see the funding helping in kind of two key areas around awareness and encouragement. So our funding will help to facilitate lots of the coding clubs globally, which Deborah's already touched upon, as well as helping to drive the Girls Who Code pipeline initiatives for those girls who are college age and over 18 and looking to get into careers in technology. And I guess echoing something that Deborah's just said, it's incredibly important for us because we know that 50% of the workforce is female, but as Deborah said, only 15% is in STEM. Now at Entain, we're breaking the mold slightly in a positive fashion because we actually have 30% of our colleagues in tech who are female. But we know that there's always more that we can do as a company and collectively as society, which is why I'm really excited about the partnership.
Yes, and we're particularly excited about the workforce development opportunities in this partnership. So we will be expanding our footprint of coding clubs to spark girls' interest. But then once they're in the pipeline, we have to keep them there. And we keep them there by giving them access to companies, helping them learn what opportunities are like in the field, demystifying the difference between a data analyst and a product manager and cybersecurity and all of the different opportunities that are available in the field, introducing them to female role models who can sponsor them on their journey. And that's what I'm really excited about as part of this partnership.
How do these investments kind of position Entain in the wider society? Like, does this move you away from being solely a betting company to more of an entertainment and kind of social responsibility company?
Yeah, so Entain is a global tech and entertainment business. But as part of that, we have a responsibility to support and inspire the kind of technologists of the future, as well as obviously championing diversity and inclusion in our workplace as a business, but also beyond. And so we really want to use our experience as a force for good in inspiring, young girls and young females to become the tech experts of the future. Now we're proud, I should say, of what Entain has achieved already. So we are the #1 ranked company in the industry for our commitment to diversity and inclusion through the All In Diversity project. But we know that there is more to do, and that's why we're positioning ourselves as a key partner of excellent organisations like Girls Who Code.
Okay, and kind of following on from that, what role does diversity and inclusion play in Entain's new corporate charter?
Yeah, so great question. It's at the heart of us creating the best place to work. So all around the world, we provide leading betting and gaming services to thousands of our customers who are all diverse in nature. And similarly, our colleagues are equally diverse, and we want to create a culture where everybody is comfortable being themselves and respected and valued for being themselves at work. So a couple of years ago, we launched a diversity and inclusion strategy called Everybody's in the Game, which aims to do just that and make sure that we celebrate differences and spot differences and make everybody who comes to work, feel safe and secure and valued and respected. And we're doing well, but there's always more that we can do.
And kind of following on from that, this is, I suppose, a question for both of you. So, representation across the industry is improving, but as you say, there is more that needs to be done. So what can companies do to kind of make sure that women and everyone of all genders are represented in C-level positions? And I suppose kind of more specific to you, Grania, is what lessons can companies learn from companies such as Entain that already has 50% female representation and 30% representation in tech?
Yeah, so I think the key for us is creating an inclusive culture, which is the best way to attract a diverse talent base, as well as Deborah said earlier, promoting tech role models in our sector and inspiring the pipeline for the future. And again, we're doing a lot of that through our diversity and inclusion strategy, whether that's female networks, female leadership programs. We partner with organisations like Stonewall to utilise their expertise in benchmarking, because obviously they're more experts in it than we are. And also things like tackling unconscious bias at various levels within our business. And I think all of that together is helping to ensure that we are a great place for women to work.
How about you, Deborah? Do you have, what, from your point of view, what more can companies do to ensure that women are equally represented in C-level positions and kind of the tech sector?
Yeah, I think you just got a kind of a beautiful roadmap there for what it looks like. I think too often companies are focused on diversity only how many women, how many people of color have I hired? But the reality is that they won't stay, and you won't create a workforce that feels welcoming for everyone if you don't focus on inclusion and thinking through from entry level all the way up to the C-suite. What does representation look like? What are my policies and practices to support a diverse group of people in these roles? And having real metrics and benchmarks around retention and promotion and pay equity are kind of the foundation of building an inclusive workforce. So it's really exciting to hear that Entain is leading on that, and you see that in their numbers, which are really impressive.
And looking at the tech sector in particular, why is it so important that we're kind of pushing women to join the tech sector, making sure that there is more representation kind of for that sector specifically?
I can go first. I think there are a number of reasons. First is economic opportunity. These are the fastest growing jobs in every economy around the world. They are the most resilient jobs, particularly as we are in kind of a global recession. We see the importance of technical roles. They are the highest paying jobs often in an economy. They can literally lift a woman and her family into the middle class. And so from an economic opportunity, we are in a place where women are often the primary breadwinners, heads of households. Like, we need women to have these roles and have these salaries. But I'd say even from a larger perspective, tech is often responsible for the innovation that we all see, whether it's on climate or cancer or COVID-19. And we need the perspectives of women and people of color in these roles to solve the global challenges ahead. And if we don't have them, we are not going to be able to truly make progress on some of these big issues that require having everyone's voice at the table.
Yeah, 100%. So I couldn't have put it better. I think if you only have a small cohort of any particular group represented in a sector, all you effectively get is an echo chamber, which isn't good for obviously the individuals involved or the business to progress. So I think Deborah's right. We need the different perspective to challenge and question and kind of drive companies forward, which you get with a diverse base rather than one particular group.
So I suppose you could say that the tech sector is kind of very male dominated, I suppose. And, you know, the theme for this year's International Women's Day is Choose to Challenge. So from kind of like a male perspective, what can men do in these companies kind of challenge the current gender stereotypes and ensure that women are kind of encouraged to join these sectors?
Yeah, so I think the responsibility has to fall on all of us, no matter what gender or background. Because I think if you just have one group, it's basically a campaigning group. But if you have a coordinated effort, then that's the best way to help change policies, procedures, beliefs, stereotypes. And I think it's important that we shouldn't have an us versus them culture. It should be us all working together to help challenge stereotypes, which we are doing at Entain in order to achieve the best outcomes for our colleagues.
I'm so glad you asked, Erin, because allyship and male allyship in particular is so important. And it's an act. It's an active thing to be an ally. And the example that I love of this is when we were visiting a coding club that we have in Rochester, New York, which is in upstate New York. It's a college town. And we noticed that there were a number of men that had attended a talk that the coding club had organized, and afterwards had kind of come over to join the women, and our founder and CEO was asking them kind of what they were doing there, and they told us that they were the men who support the Women in Computing Club. And they actually had a club that was all about allyship and about showing up to support women and figuring out how they could start to break down some of the systemic barriers that women are facing in their everyday life. So things like ensuring there were women in their study groups in their computer science classes, or being really conscious of the patterns of participation in their classes so that women were getting called on. Those types of things that are really active ally moves are really critical. And so in the workforce setting, I think it's really important that men are showing up to these discussions alongside women. It can't be women just talking to each other in a room. We need everyone in the room. And so I would encourage for this International Women's Day, men to view this as their work too, and that they have a role to play in this broader fight for equality.
Yeah, so we had a really interesting internal event about a year ago, a Women in Leadership event, and we asked everybody who was participating to bring a male colleague with them.
Right.
Because I think one of the key issues is to raise awareness among our male counterparts about the fact that there are gender stereotypes that need to be challenged.
Yeah.
And that was one of the most well attended and successful events that people still talk about today. Good. Because it was bringing everybody together, you know, to tackle the issue.
I suppose it's a shame with COVID-19 this year that can't quite happen in the same.
Yes, yeah. Not quite the same virtually.
No, but I mean, it still makes a difference. One final question that I had for you both. So as I mentioned, the theme is choose to challenge. So have you got any like kind of personal examples of when you've had to challenge a gender stereotype that has led to something positive for you?
Good question. So in a previous life, in an organization that I worked at, I was part of a vocal team who were able to actually upweight the company maternity policy and flexibility policies to encourage more women to return to work after having children. And the reason we did that, so it was before I had children, but the reason that we did that was that, you know, as a society, we know that we lose a lot of women from the workforce when they reach a certain age and decide to take different paths in life. And it was great because, as we all probably know on the call, the attraction rates and the retention rates of females increased as a result of you know, a small change that the business made.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And how about you, Deborah?
You know, I'm struggling to think of an example, and I think it's because often the way that I've experienced stereotypes or bias is less kind of explicit and more implicit.
Yeah.
So I remember so clearly, I started my career in tech at Google. And I remember the day, it was about a month after I started, that I got off on the wrong floor. And I was on the marketing and comms team, which was predominantly women. I had a female boss and a female boss's boss, and I felt really supported and seen as a communications associate. And I got off on the floor and I realized it was an engineering floor. And I looked out and there were rows and rows of men. There wasn't a single woman in sight, no people of color. And it was the first time I remember really seeing the gender gap in tech, like it was staring me in the face. And that moment has stuck with me because of how powerful a signal it was, and no one had to say anything. It was really clear that coding, technology, technical roles were for men, and that I was lost on the floor, like I didn't belong there. And so ever since then, I've really intentionally sought out places where people like me were, and that places where I felt like I belonged, because I remember the feeling of not belonging. And for the young women that we work with, I don't want them to have to make that choice or to ever have that feeling that they don't belong. And so rather than, them feeling they need to kind of seek out companies like that, I would like our workforce to look like that. And that no industry, particularly one as critical as technology, feels closed to them.